Now I'm going to show you how we subcut. And you can see on this one, I've got the two selvages together, and this one I have the two selvages together. So I want to try to match these ends. And what I'm going to do is show you how to cut a 4-patch. So we put the two selvages together, and I have this one is pressed toward the blue, and this one is pressed toward the blue. So I want those seams to be opposing so they'll interlock. I'm going to lay this one on top. It doesn't matter which one you put on top. And the first thing I'm concerned with is this seam. I want to make sure they interlock. They're butting right up against each other. And if they're doing that, it's very smooth as you run your finger over it. So I get over here and I can feel that I feel 2 lumps instead of one little small lump. So we go down the line and we even up the edges and check for the seam. And it's not vitally important at this point. It just makes it easier to cut, because when we stitch these, after we cut these apart and stitch them back together again, then we'll check that again. But we want to get as close as we can so we can get nice, accurate cuts. So I'm just going down the end and I'm interlocking all the seams, just moving it around so it interlocks, and they're all nicely lined up. So let's go over here. The first thing I'm going to do is straighten out the ends over here and cut off the selvages. We never want to use the selvage. So to do this, instead of turning the whole thing around, I'm just lining up one of the horizontal lines here, and I'm finding a vertical line that clears me of all of the selvage. And I'm going to place my ruler on that vertical line, and I'm going to trim off the selvage. Now after this, I'm going to use my ruler for all the cuts, and I want to cut these 3.5 inches, and the segments 3.5 inches. When I sew these together, I'll get a 6.5 inch block. So let's start just cutting at 3.5 inches, and I'm lining up this edge, the 3.5 inch mark on the ruler, and I'm looking for a line across here that I could line up with my seam line. So I'm checking in 2 places, the left edge and the middle. And then I'm going to cut 3.5 inches. And we'll do that all the way down this line. And we should get 11 pieces out of these 2 strip sets. Alright, now what we're going to do is sew these into 4-patch units. To do that, we're going to take one of the segments, so we have 2 layers here, and they're already put together and ready to sew. When I take it to the sewing machine, I'm going to first check that my seam is still interlocked here. I'm going to start on this edge and sew an accurate 1/4 inch all the way down. And then we're going to press it, and it doesn't matter which side you press. Now here's the block that I just sewed, and we want to check that to make sure it's 6.5 inches, and this block will finish at 6 inches when you finish sewing it. So I've checked, and it is 6.5 inches. Now let me show you how we interlock those seams here. Here are the seams, and because we put them together with opposing seams, this one was pressed toward the blue and this one was pressed toward the blue, and we see we have a nice good point right there, and that's because we interlocked them when we cut them, and we checked again that they were interlocked before we sewed them.